Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Y'all ready for this?
All right, average Jocks fans, we welcome friend of the show, Craig Button. Craig, welcome back, I guess.
Yeah, we had a nice little visit in Cornwall during the World Junior A Challenge. So happy that you guys invited me back. Had a good time with you guys in Cornwall. And nice little finish. Team USA was pretty strong, but as we get down the stretch here near the trade deadline and into the National Hockey League playoffs, the OHL playoffs, it's a lot of fun time in the season, and it's soon to be March, which means spring can't be that far behind.
Always a positive spin with this guy.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm all right with that.
So we're going to be right in your wheelhouse this week, Craig. We're going to be talking about, obviously, the trade deadline. This is our pre-trade deadline show. I can't commit to the full 6 hours like you boys do on TSN. But
6? I would be happy to sign up for 6. We started
James
8.
told me it was just 6. So does that mean you're there before James?
Yeah, I'm there before James. We got to prepackage a few things. We got to tape a few things. I mean, we go on the air at 8 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be there at 6:30 doing things, and I'll be there well into the evening. We got to do post-trade deadline. That's hockey. And then guess what? Then we got Connor Bedard hosting the Winnipeg Ice in a CHL on TSN game at 8 o'clock Eastern time. I'll be out of there probably about 11 o'clock Eastern time. So you add up the hours, and I can only tell you this. It's not 6.
Yeah. Well, you're James is getting off easy, so I'll have to let him know if you think you got it bad. You talk to Craig.
Exactly. I don't have it bad. James doesn't have it bad. We have a lot of fun, but somebody's got to help him with math.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
I won't be the person.
Neither will I. I think I got like a 50 in grade 12 math. So, like I said, we're gonna be right in your wheelhouse. Before we get into any of the trade talk, I just want your opinion on the Keandre Miller unsportsmanlike conduct match penalty against Drew Doughty. I guess there is the school of thought where there's absolutely no way this is accidental, and the side of it where Keandre Miller released a tweet today saying it wasn't accidental, he'd never do anything like that. What's your train of thought?
Well, I mean, despite the protestations of Keandre Miller, the video evidence looks pretty damning for Keandre. So, maybe he didn't. Maybe his intention was to fake it, and then the spat came out. Bottom line is that I don't think there's anybody that can look at the video and agree with Keandre Miller. That's the way I would look at it. So, Garnet Hathaway got suspended for 3 games for a very similar act. I don't care how high the emotions are. I don't care how tense the game is. It's an uncouth, rude act. And the bottom line, Keandre Miller is going to pay a price. The Rangers are going to pay a price in his absence. But at the end of the day, I think that, like, for a player, and the video evidence is, like I said, so clear and so damning, apologize, say that it's something that I wouldn't want to be part of. I can't believe it. I'm ashamed, to move on. Just acknowledge you were wrong. That's what I would suggest to Keandre Miller. Accidental didn't mean, give me a break. You accidentally spit on somebody?
Yeah, and I grew up on a farm and hawked a lot of loogies in my life, and and I don't think that it wasn't just like you said, he faked it. Yeah, that was 100% on purpose. Like, there's no denying it, and the fact that he actually is, I'm assuming it's just a PR and a rep thing for him to obviously deny everything. But again, just like you said, just admit to it, get past it, I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of fine, suspension. I'm assuming, depending on what the league wants to do, but
There should be a suspension. If the precedent is 3 games for Garnet Hathaway, why shouldn't Keandre Miller get 3 games? The
So
bottom
I
line
guess
is you can deny. The bottom line is for Gunn, just acknowledge you made a mistake. Just acknowledge you made a mistake. It's a better path to go down.
so. Just playing devil's advocate, you're saying Garnet Hathaway got 3 games for a similar situation. Where would you rank it from Garnet Hathaway's 3 games to Brad Marchand's fine for licking somebody? I guess, to me, that's where there's the gray area. Where is it just the stature of Brad Marchand being a superstar in the league, where he can lick somebody and get a $5,000 fine?
The way I would look at it is that I think it was Brad Marchand. It's antics. It's not. It wasn't good antics, as opposed to an uncouth act and a rude act. I think that Brad, was, like I said, I used the word antics because that's what it was all about. He was trying to get people unsettled in his own way. I don't look at it as uncouth. I don't look at it as a scenario that's similar to Garnet Hathaway, or in this case, Keandre Miller. I was in Calgary, and Scotty Nickel, who's just an unbelievable guy, just an unbelievable competitor, got suspended for not spitting at somebody, but in the direction of a linesman. And there was not any video evidence. I totally believed Scotty Nickel. I didn't think that was something he would do, but the league had to listen to their linesman, and so he got suspended for 2 games. And so, your point about licking, and we can say, oh, geez, it's bodily fluids, you're licking and everything. I think the act, I think when you look at what Brad was doing and the way he was carrying on, is a mouthful of spit and projecting it into somebody's face.
I mean, personally, I don't think I would want either to ever happen to me. I mean, hopefully I'm not in that situation. I never put myself in a situation where I'm going to be licked
or spit on.
Yeah. But you know what? Enough of that. That's we can move on from that, and because there's so much to talk about. I mean, trade deadline's not till Friday, and it already seems like there's a carousel of movement throughout the league.
Happens every year.
There is a carousel movement. Teams get to a point where they're satisfied that they can make a transaction, whether it be the selling team, whether it be the buying team, and you can't wait when you have a chance to affect change and you're confident about it, you act. And yeah, all the deadline does is tell you after this date you can't do anything. So it certainly pushes teams to make moves. Teams that haven't made moves as that date comes closer and the hour comes closer will be and probably there'll be more earnest to them trying to make deals, especially the contending teams and even some selling teams, because if they can get out from contracts, like you look at the Chicago Blackhawks trading Jake McCabe, that contract has term on it. So, you got teams that are looking and going, okay, listen, I can move some term because where our team is at. So the urgency level picks up, and I think that there's no question we'll see some more trades. And it doesn't mean that we get to this point on a Monday, prior to the trade deadline on February 27th, that teams aren't going to act, because they are going to act. And we saw Ryan O'Reilly go, we saw Tarasenko go, we saw Tanner Jeannot go, we saw McCabe and Lafferty go now, and there's Orloff and Hathaway, ironically, go. So you look at the scenarios of those teams, they're also trying to better themselves, and so when the right deal comes along, you execute it. That's what happened. It happened today. It happened on Sunday with the Devils and Timo Meier, and away you go. But there's other moves out there.
So before we talk about our hypotheticals and what we think is going to happen on Friday, or I guess leading up to Friday, because it seems to be a pattern now where stuff doesn't wait till the last day anymore and come down to that 3:00 time to run out. we'll kind of dissect a couple of the bigger ones. And one thing that I feel maybe more than in the past years is the amount that it's costing teams to acquire players, and not just the Timo Myers or the Ryan O'Reillys or the Vladimir Tarasenko, but I guess a good place to start would probably be Tanner Jeannot going from Nashville to Tampa Bay for a slew of picks,
whole draft class.
And Cale Foote, who's a young defenseman, and if he can be anything like his father back there, you got a hell of a defenseman. Do you think
what I would say to you, he's
overpay?
No, I don't. Because first of all, he's not like his dad, and the Tampa Bay Lightning know Cal Foote as good as anybody. Does that mean he can't go and help a team? No, I'm not saying that at all. But he's not even close to his dad. And when you start to look at overpay, and people want to talk about draft capital and overpay, so one thing and this is a fact. Out of any draft, there's only approximately 40 players around there, could be 42, 43, somewhere around there, that play 350 games or more in the NHL. That very many players that play in the NHL. And remember, that's varying degrees. That's players that were high picks that got opportunity and didn't come to fruition, that didn't reach their potential or what it was projected as. 40 to 42, 43 players. Not very many. Not very many at all. So that's a fact about the draft. So maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning understand what the draft is about better than other people. And so when they traded a first-round draft pick for Barclay Goodrow, I heard the same thing. Oh, my God, I can't believe they're paying a first-round draft pick for Barclay Goodrow. 2 Stanley Cups. They traded Nolan Foote, a first-round draft pick, and a first-round draft pick for Blake Coleman. I heard the same thing. I can't believe they're made that trade for Blake Coleman. 2 Stanley Cups. Last year, they traded 2 first-round draft picks for Brandon Hagel. He's a 30-goal scorer. He's going to help them push. He helped them last year push to the Stanley Cup final. You asked me if that's an overpay to try to win a Stanley Cup with a great group of players and a great team. It's not an overpay in my view. The price of winning is high. The price of winning is high. And you know what the problem is? Too many people are afraid to pay the price. They all talk about winning, but they're not ready to pay the price. And there's a lot of them out there. But this idea that it's an overpay, no. Not buying it one bit, because the facts are 40 to 42 players play 350 games or more. And yeah, it's different, but Tampa Bay's not trading the top 5. Dennis Gurianov, who was the 12th overall pick, just got traded for Evgeny Dadonov. Vitaly Kravtsov, the 9th overall pick, just got traded for Will Lockwood in a 7th round draft pick. Will was a late round draft pick. That's the 9th and 12th overall picks. You're telling me that, that Tampa Bay trading a player or trading a pick that at best might come and help your team in 4 years' time? No, not an overpay. It's all about trying to help your team right now. And when you look at 2 Stanley Cups, a Stanley Cup final, I don't think anybody should be questioning what Julien BriseBois and the Tampa Bay Lightning have accomplished. Today, yesterday, going forward, it's certainly not in the past years.
All right, so a follow-up to that, do you think that the amount, not necessarily, the fact that there's a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and 5th involved in this, but the number of picks that were given up lead you to believe that there is an extension in place, or at least a conversation that both sides are mutually interested? Or is that just the price of a rental nowadays?
Well, I can't speak to, do I know if there's an extension in place? I mean, Nick Paul came in last year and he played really well. And Julien BriseBois is a very measured and somebody that's very patient. So he makes a move, understanding that what he's doing now is to position his team to be stronger going into the playoffs and accomplish something significant. Then player gets a chance to evaluate the team gets a chance to evaluate the player. And in the case of Nick Paul, we have a long-term contract signed there. But it didn't happen like prior. And I don't I'm not here to say that the potential for a long-term contract is there or it isn't there. But Julian's process right now is about adding a player to strengthen his team. And and like if they go in the first round in the playoffs and it is good, why do you want to sign? And then maybe you look at it and go, well, geez, you're expecting a lot more. But you know what? You can't say it's an overpay today, okay, without knowing what else is going to play out in the next weeks and months. Like, okay, if Tampa Bay goes out like they did versus Columbus, you can go back and go, geez, that looks like a pretty significant price to pay for a player that can help us. And trust me, Julian Breesball will be doing that before any of us. But at the same time, you know what? You have to act before you get all the results. And you got to believe in what you're doing. I just mentioned Goudreau. I just mentioned Coleman. I mentioned Brandon Hagel. Like I said, I'm not here to doubt Julian Breesball. If he signs him and he gets an extension, I would say that it's probably because the Tampa Bay Lightning went and had some significant success, and Tanner was a pretty big part of it.
Do you think going forward with how great Tampa Bay has been, like you said, with getting these guys and giving up draft picks, do you think teams will actually start to and management will start to pick up on how successful this actually is if you want your team to be in the now instead of the future?
Well, the future matters. It just depends how you're going to manage that future, right? So, when you start to look at where a team is at and you start to understand the Tampa Bay Lightning are right in a window of significant competitiveness, I think that it's not about trading. If you're in the bottom half of the league, you shouldn't be trading your future away. You're going to have to build your future, just like the Tampa Bay Lightning did. So, it depends where you're at, but to evaluate it and to consider, number one, okay, what can I do to help my team move forward? You got a lot of good players there, and they got a lot of players that want to win, and certainly winning is important. But you look at the number of picks and you go, geez, that's yeah, it is significant. But at the same time, what's the price of not acting and just hoping that you might win? Like, they're proactive. Do I think that other teams should be looking at some point? Absolutely, I should. Yeah, absolutely, I believe that. And you have to consider it, and you have to look at it, and you have to know the data. 40 to 42 players play 350 games or more in the NHL. I just mentioned the 9th and 12th pick in a draft that just got traded for pennies on the dollar. Pennies on the dollar. And you look at it, and everybody gets high on a draft, and you should. And there's lots of players, like the players come through the draft. I'm not here to say that you shouldn't be, but you got to evaluate where you're at and understand that when you're picking, like where the Tampa Bay Lightning are picking, like they traded that first round pick that turned into Barclay Goudreau. Okay, that pick was Ozzie Weisblatt. Now Ozzie's solid prospect. That's what he is. 32nd pick in the draft. He's a solid prospect. And you know what? If they go and use that first round pick, I don't know. Maybe they use Ozzie. He ain't helping them win this year. So that's the calculation when you're evaluating, what you're ready to give up and what you're ready to do. But I think it all has to be done in light of the knowledge of the data, your projections, where you think you have other players, and then go from there.
Like it. All right.
I mean, another trade I'd like to kind of pick your brain at is the Timo Meier deal. It seemed to me, I mean, it was a lengthy process for the trade call to go through, and obviously once everything came out, there were a lot of pieces. So I'm sure Central Scouting had to go through everything and fact check and that kind of stuff. But were you underwhelmed by the return of a player such as Timo Meier? Like, personally, I think they could have asked for more.
Well, I guess I'd have to ask you what's more. Shakir Mukhamadullin is going to play in the NHL. He's ready to play in the NHL right now. He's a really good player. He's a big, strong defenseman with skill. There's no question to me that he can be a top 3 defenseman in the league and maybe more. So that's a player that you don't. Where do you find 6'4" players that can play the way Shakir Mukhamadullin plays? I can tell you there aren't very many of them. That's pretty significant. So then you get the first round draft pick. So that's something that they want to do going in the future. You look at Fabian in Zetterlund. You know, I think Fabian's a third line player, but he's an NHL player. You got Nikita Okhotyuk, who probably, if he can continue to push his game along, could probably end up being a bottom pair defenseman. And then you have some other picks. But like the San Jose Sharks are also in a spot where what we don't know is what were other teams offering them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what were they offering them? Was it better? All I know is this, is that people that talk about Shakir Mukhamadullin and talk about him in a negative light don't know the player. I'll be very straightforward. They don't know the player. He's a darn good player. He's a darn good prospect. That's a hell of an addition for the San Jose Sharks. A hell of an addition. You weren't getting Luke Hughes. You weren't getting Simon Nemeth. Now you get this guy? Pretty impressive by Mike Greer, in my view.
Yeah, I guess I was just more expecting, if you're giving up a 30 goal scorer, that they were going to be looking at replacing him with a young forward. I guess was my expectation of Mike Greer. And again, I can't say that I'm 1,000% familiar with San Jose's farm system and what they have coming up in the pipeline. But I guess it left me feeling lukewarm with the return. And again, I'm not even going to try and say Shakir's last name. You've nailed it like 3 times in a sentence.
Mukhamadullin.
Mukhamadullin.
I think we should have a class.
Medullin.
Yeah.
Mukhamadullin.
Mukhamadullin.
You learn that one.
Yeah,
I'll get the next one.
You'll get the next one.
Yeah.
All right, Mukhamadullin.
Yeah, like I like Zetterlund, sorry, but like you said, like he's middle six guy at best. I don't know. I was expecting maybe a bigger name or a bigger splash up front to replace a for sure 30 goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
We traded. I was in Dallas in 1995, in December of 1995. We traded for Joe Nieuwendyk. And the player we traded from, people said, who?
Joe McGinley.
Who? Yeah, and they all said, who? There was other teams in the league that thought they made a better offer to the Calgary Flames for Joe Nieuwendyk than we did. Just another example of teams that didn't know the player, and certainly the public didn't.
So do you think that Mike Greer saw something in all these young guys and made that trade without hesitation?
No, I don't think Mike. Mike doesn't operate like that. He's measured. He's patient. What he saw is I just described Shakir Mukhamadullin as a very unique player. Mm-hmm. Big, strong, with skill, with power, that I see clearly as a top 3 defenseman. Clearly. And he might very well end up being a top pair defenseman if he keeps tracking in that direction. That's how good he is. He's that good. And so, where do you find these defensemen like that? I don't know where you find them. So he gets Zetterlund. He's got a chance at a first-round draft. But this isn't the only move Mike's going to make. He's going to have a first-round draft pick. He's going to make other moves. And again, I qualified it at the beginning. I don't know what other people were offering. I don't know what people were offering. I can go and look at it's been reported that the Vegas Golden Knights were one of the finalists. I know the Vegas Golden Knights prospect list. They don't have a player better than Shakir Mukhamadullin on it.
That's fair.
I mean, yeah. Hey, can't argue with that.
Craig's just spitting facts.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with that. Yeah.
I'm just saying that's my opinion. I'm just telling you what I see. Somebody else can disagree with me. I'm just telling you my perspective.
But you know what? I would never disagree with Craig Button when it comes to prospects.
Yeah.
I feel there is nobody better at prospects and analyzing and watches. I don't think anybody watches more junior hockey than you do.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, there's lots of people working at it and doing it, but I appreciate the kind words. But, I always joke. I said, there's only one thing I'm ever certain of is that I'm going to be wrong. and I have been wrong. So, keep that in mind too.
I'm still learning that one. My wife tries to drill that one home at all times. I'm still working on that.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. My wife says
I'm wrong. I can only tell you this. When it comes to my wife, I'm an oafer. I've never been right.
That's awesome.
Well, I will write that down for future arguments. Honey, I'm an oafer.
Yeah.
So I guess the trade that happened today. I mean, I know we have a lot of guys that cheer for the Leafs that watch us. And I know I got a text from a buddy right away. What do you know on Jake McCabe? I think Jake McCabe is a solid pickup at probably a fraction of the price that they would have had to pay for some other defenseman, along the lines. And Sam Lafferty gives them, I would say, probably the best 1 through 4 center group, available, probably in the Eastern Conference, especially with all the ads that have been. Like Ryan O'Reilly being your third line center. I know right now he's playing wing, but I anticipate that to change come playoff time. Do you think that Jake McCabe fits in nicely with that Toronto defense?
Absolutely, he does. And, I talked earlier just about, other teams that are looking to make moves, that affect their future. Jake McCabe has term left on his contract. So the Chicago Blackhawks may be interested in saying, hey, listen, you know what? You're not going to be part of what we're trying to do here. So they move him along and get something in return. With Jake Muzzin out for the season, and obviously you wish the best for Jake, and just being able to have a really good, solid lifestyle after hockey. You hope that this back injury isn't something that impedes him. But without Jake Muzzin, getting Jake McCabe, I think, is a really, really solid addition. I think that the Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari additions were really good. It made the team clearly better. But now adding Jake McCabe, it gives you strength in an area where they needed more strength. And I think that became essential for Kyle Dubas to be able to execute, and he did. And Sam Lafferty, is a player that plays with a lot of competitive edge, and gives him a little bit of scoring deeper in the lineup. And so when I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think back to what Morgan Riley said on the Saturday after they acquired Ryan O'Reilly, he was being pressed. Well, how do you feel? Do you really think that this can help your team? And he goes, we're a stronger team today than we were before we made the trade for Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari. And I think it's the same thing today. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a stronger team after making the trade for Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty. That's a general manager's job, is to make your team not only good, but like you're looking around you. You're playing Tampa Bay in the first round of the playoffs. How can you get your team into a position where they're stronger? The margins are real thin here. They went to Game 7 last year, and the margins were real thin, a 2-1 game. And now you're trying to find a way to be on the right side of it. The Tampa Bay Lightning are trying to find a way to get on the right side of it. But that's the exercise at play here. And to me, Kyle Dubas has clearly made his team stronger. And with the hope that, it pushes them further along the path to not only beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, but to win a first-round series, which has got to be the first thing before you even can start to consider a Stanley Cup.
Well, let's hope this McCabe defenseman does a little bit better than the last McCabe defenseman that suited up for the Leafs and get them to the second round.
Brian was a pretty good player. He was an Olympian in 2006. Now, Jake is a different player than Brian, but, bottom line is that, back when Brian was playing, and at that time there was a different era for the Toronto Maple Leafs and a different approach. This is a team that right now has a lot of ability. And I think that it's one thing for Kyle to talk about a group of players that he believes in, but they've shown him unequivocally that they can play. They can play through injury. They can play with the loss of players through injury, and they can be really successful. And I think that these 4 additions, really, really solidify this team and position them better for a chance to win a first-round series.
Yeah, and I noticed too, one of the years where the Leafs had obviously not teams like this on paper, McCabe being a great addition. I find this year, I think you can actually say the Leafs might be a good team. I mean, obviously they're great, but I always noticed that throughout the years they would never try and get something to bulk up their team, and this year they're actually doing it. And do you think this team will hold up in front of their goaltending? Do you think these guys are going to pan out?
Yeah, I do. And I'll be straightforward. I have no worries about Ilya Samsonov. I have
No.
none. I have no worries about him. I watched what Jordan Binnington did. I think that Ilya is a really good goaltender, and I think that the way they've played defense this year, in the absence of some of those defense injuries, I think they've really become a better, more disciplined defensive team. And with Ryan O'Reilly there, and Noel Achari, and Jake McCabe, and Sam Lafferty, and everybody now that has a little bit less pressure on them to do more. And it's the pressure, as you're going through a playoff series and you're into tense parts of a game and a series, there's that tendency to want to do more. Well, why does that happen? It happens because you have a great determination, you have a great competitive spirit, and you want to be the difference maker. But sometimes more isn't better. And sometimes by trying to do more, you end up creating problems. I think Kyle, by what he's done with his group, has allowed everybody just play to your abilities. Just go and do what you do. We got enough here. We got enough players that can contribute in different parts of the game, important parts of the game. And now let's feel good about it. Everybody starts to feel comfortable with one another. So when the playoffs begin in April, this team is firing on all cylinders.
Because really, since O'Reilly showed up, like, not that you haven't heard about Matthews and Marner and stuff, but like you said, it's kind of taken that weight off their shoulders, where it's not like, oh, Matthews and this, Marner this, Nylander, now it's even like, you even hear a lot, like you said, like Achari. It's like, to me, it's nice to see those young guys get a bit of a weight taken off their shoulders and just play their game and don't have to worry about that much pressure.
Yeah, it's essential. You just do what you're capable of doing. I'm not going to ask you to do more, but don't give me less.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to do more than you're capable of, but don't give me less.
So here's the first hypothetical I have for you, Craig. So you guys aren't going to see his facial expression because I was talking when he did it, but it was a great facial expression. So the Leafs have addressed their need for a little more grit up front. They've addressed kind of shoring up, another able body on the blue line. Does the fact that Matt Murray seems to get hurt whenever there's a strong wind in his direction concern? What's so funny about that?
Just laughing.
Does that concern you at all that maybe in the playoffs, like let's say Samsonov go down, the next man up is Eric Shalgren or Joseph Woll? Like, if you were Kyle Dubas, would you be maybe looking at the goaltending market to try and shore up another person that, just in case, just because there's so many of these guys that are on, like O'Reilly's done at the end of the year. Is he going to take a pay cut to stay in Toronto? Like, you have the pieces right now to win.
I can't speak for Ryan O'Reilly. Yeah. Here's what I would say about that. I'm not counting on Matt Murray. And people go, oh, geez, that's harsh. No, I'm not. He's not durable. Listen, go back 100%. To 2017. The playoffs didn't even start for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He couldn't make it through the warm-up. Mm-hmm. If the Toronto Maple Leafs are counting on Matt Murray, shame on them. So do I think that Joseph Woll could come in and give them some solid goaltending? Yeah. Do you want to do that is the question. And if I'm Kyle Dubas, I don't want to do that. I'm looking to get a backup goaltender. I'm absolutely looking to get somebody that's got NHL experience.
So that being said, Craig, part two of the hypothetical, is there a name just off the top of your head that you would, if you were Kyle Dubas, that you would say, you know what, this is probably an affordable backup that's expandable to his team?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into that, right? You could look to teams that are out of the playoffs, that are at the bottom of the league. I mean, the Arizona Coyotes, right? And it's not Carl Vejmelka, but is there somebody else is Aiden Hill healthy? Like, you don't want to go get another goaltender that's not dependable, right? Mm-hmm. You start to look at, was Cam Talbot somebody that you might have been looking at, so, like a little while ago with if Ottawa was falling. Well, Ottawa's not falling off, so I don't think so. I'm going to tell you the guy that I would absolutely try to get, and that's Samuel Montembeault for the Montreal Canadiens. That's a guy I would try to get. Salary fits. He's had a really strong season for the Montreal Canadiens. I would feel really comfortable with Samuel Montembeault in that spot.
As a Habs fan, I'd hate to see him go. I'd hate to see him go, but
you know what though? And we were talking before we hopped on, and the goaltender we thought you were going to say was the other Montreal Canadiens goaltender, Jake Allen. So we picked the right team, just the wrong guy.
Yeah. And again, like I have no problem with Samsonov. I have no problem with Samsonov. And keep in mind, Jake Allen got supplanted by Jordan Binnington. So it's not a knock against Jake Allen. You know, if you brought in Jake to be a backup, that would certainly fit. But he's got term left on his contract. So does Matt Murray. Becomes a little tricky for Kyle Dubas, in my view.
Okay. So I guess just us being Habs fans, we'll do some not so much hypothetical, but odds wise, and we'll just go through a couple guys. First, probably being the one that I've heard the most rumbling about, and that would be Joel Edmondson. And kind of looking like maybe the Oilers and the Canadiens are having some conversations. If you're Ken Holland, are you worried at all about Joel Edmondson's injury history?
Well, you're trying to find out what the situation is with Joel. Any manager is going to be doing that. But a healthy Joel Edmondson is going to help your team. So I think the first step is okay, where's he at health-wise? Where's he at physical-wise? And then you move from there. But I think when you think about Joel playing for the St. Louis Blues when they won the Cup, when you think about the Stanley Cup run, and when they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning in Montreal, Joel Edmondson would be a nice fit for teams that are looking for that type of player. And certainly I think he would benefit the Edmonton Oilers.
Okay.
And who's a team that's had defense problems for years.
Yeah, I don't think they've really been the same defensively since losing Oster Klefbom a few years back.
Or Adam Larson.
As well, yeah. And that was around the same time. I'm pretty sure the year Klefbom went down, Larson was saying he wasn't going back.
Yeah.
I guess another player Habs fans have kind of mentioned wanting to see Kent Hughes or Jeff Gordon move on from would be Jonathan Drouin. He's playing decent hockey, still no goals on the season. Can you see any team taking a flyer on him before the Friday deadline?
Yeah, I could. I could see somebody taking a flyer on him. I think it's one of those deals that, comes with low risk. I don't think the price would be very high at all. And, a team just I will say this. It might be just to have Jonathan as a depth player. It might not even be to have him playing. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. So you'd be talking to the agent and telling them, here's why we're acquiring him. You know what? If this is going to be just a situation where he's not going to be happy, then we're not interested. That's what I'd be doing as a manager.
Fair enough.
I mean, yeah, other than an assist a game, like you said, he's not producing the way he should be anyways. But
do you think that the market is any better for Mike Hoffman?
Yeah, I think Mike Hoffman. The problem with Mike, and it's not a problem per se, it's a problem because he's got term left on his contract at a pretty significant dollar. It's hard to fit the players in at this point in time with so little cap room. Like if Mike had an expiring contract and he could work it in a different way to have the Montreal Canadiens absorb a little bit of salary, yeah, you can make a deal, and that's not to say it's prohibitive, but it's just another factor that comes into play.
Okay, well, that answers my Habs. Anybody you want to throw at him?
I mean, everyone they're saying Savard, but I just don't think the Habs get rid of Savard. I just don't think so. I think they keep him. I don't. Again, I've heard. Again, you read what you want on Twitter. I guess you can only believe so much unless it's coming from the guys from TSN. So, really, a Savard trade I don't think will happen. But
$3.5 million is contracts manageable. I'd darn well be interested in David Savard.
And that's the thing.
I wouldn't rule out the Tampa Bay Lightning either.
You think they take a shot back at him? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't operate in that space. I said it wouldn't surprise me.
He was throwing something.
No, yeah, yeah.
If it happens, though, you look like a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I can speculate on a lot of things. I try to look where players would be a good fit,
Yeah.
and what a team could use. And I think that David Savard at $3.5 million would fit on any number of teams. And I certainly believe that Tampa Bay, him having gone through there, them knowing him, if they could make it work, I think he would be a nice fit there. Now, they may not want it to work. They may not be interested in it. I'm just telling you how I look at it.
Yeah.
So I guess moving on, we'll wrap up with the last Canadian East team, the Ottawa Senators. Obviously, I mean, at the time that we're recording this, they're spanking. The last time we seen was, I think, 5-2 over Detroit in the third. Do you think that? Well, obviously, I think Pierre Dorian's going to make a move, but do you think it's going to be more depth guys, or do you think he goes and tries to make a big splash at the deadline?
Yeah, like I'm not here to like. For me, big splash isn't what matters.
Mhm.
Right splash. Give me the right splash. You know what? Like the Ottawa Senators find themselves in a spot now where a month ago nobody would have even said playoff contender. You got games in hand. You know they're now beating Detroit, who they're going to have to compete for one of those last wild card spots for. So if not now, when? You're going to wait again until next fall? You're going to try to win the summer signing thing and win it. You don't win Stanley Cups in July. And so, like, it was nice what Pierre did last year with the Brincat and Giroux coming here, and they played well. He needs a defenseman. He needs a defenseman.
Mhm.
That's what he needs. And if he doesn't get one, their chances are diminished. And again, what are you going to keep waiting for in Ottawa? You're going to keep waiting for next year, next spring, next fall? No. If not now, when?
Yeah.
To me, they need to act. I think the two teams in Canada that need to act are Edmonton and Ottawa. Edmonton for a very different reason than Ottawa, but no less significant.
Do you think that, just again, bringing up the right fit, do you think that Ottawa would be interested in a player like David Savard, or are they looking for a different type of defenseman?
Yeah, like it's all in context of what you're trying to do with your blue line. And like David Savard's a right shot, heavy, body weight, hard, and he brings something to you that, like, to me, that's really important. There's a measure of really dialed in competitive discipline, which is what the playoffs are about, which is what playoff runs are about. You got a lot of young players there. You don't think Jake Sanderson's not going to benefit from being around that? Thomas Chabot, some of the other players. You're trying to reinforce it. So, yeah, he would be, for me, a really strong fit in there.
Well, we can move on to Western Canada, and I guess we'll start with the buyers. I mean,
I
the
can only tell you this. Okay, I'm going to have a flight taken off here in a little while, so
I will hurry up. We will blast through. Winnipeg Jets, do you think they're done after adding Nino Niederreiter?
Well, it's one important step, especially with the injury to Perfetti. But I think that right now they got to get their team a little bit settled. They struggled to score. Their defense is still solid. Their goaltending is very, very strong. And I think that they got to find a way to get their offense going again. I think Niederreiter really helps that. If they could find another forward that can help the scoring, I think that Niederreiter, to me, replaces Perfetti. I think they need another forward.
All right. Calgary, we won't talk about a player, but do you think they're in sell mode?
No, I don't think. This is a team that has a really good defensive approach to the game. Their defense metrics are still very strong. Still very, very top end in the National Hockey League. Their scoring this year has struggled at points. It's picked up here in the last month. Jacob Markstrom has let this team down time and time and time again. Jacob Markstrom is the biggest problem that the Calgary Flames have. So unless you're bringing in Patrick Roy, you know what? I don't think they should be in sell mode. I think they should be in trying to find a way. And Jacob's a hell of a competitor. We know how good of a goaltender he's been. To me, get him out of there. Bring up Dustin Wolf, who's been the best goaltender at his level for the last 4 years, 2 in the Western Hockey League, now 2 in the American Hockey League. I bring up Jordan Binnington. They did it with Jordan Binnington. Jacob is just struggling massively. If they didn't have Dan Vladar this year, this team would be in massive sell-off mode. but I don't think they need to sell off. I think they need to make a decision and that says we can't keep putting Jacob in there. He keeps letting the team down, not because he wants to, not because he's not capable. He's just at that point. And goaltenders, players find this where they just, no matter what they do or how hard they work, they can't find their game. And he hasn't found his game this year.
All right. We talked about Edmonton's defense a bit. Obviously, they're going to look to add a defenseman. Would you be worried about the Stuart Skinner, Jack Campbell tandem?
No. I'd be worried about any goaltender that has to play behind that blue line.
I love it. And the last West Canadian team, the Vancouver Canucks, obviously they are sellers. Rumor, with JT Miller being scratched tonight, they're saying it's an injury. Some people are saying maybe there's a trade. Do you think there's any truth to that?
That's a big contract, and you're taking on 7 years after. I think that if JT Miller was a pending free agent, there'd be a haul to be had for JT Miller. 7 years after this year, the Vancouver Canucks are trying to find their salary cap situation to try to find some relief there. They traded Bo Horvat. They have to me, improve the blue line. Now, unless it's a defenseman coming in at similar money and some term, that's the only scenario that if I'm looking at their team that I would be considering. And so, that's what they got to do. They got a new coach. They have a team that's got some really good skill. Quinn Hughes included on the blue line, and Thatcher Demko comes back in the game versus Dallas on Monday night. I think he's a clear-cut number one goaltender. But now you got to improve the blue line, and I think that every move they make, every move they consider, has to be done with that in mind.
All right, and we always like to wrap things up. Adam has a little segment he works on every week called Yay or Nay. It's pretty much just a thumbs up or a thumbs down to his whatever questions he comes up with. I don't see them, so you and I are both going in blind.
And these aren't expert questions, so don't think too much on it. No
such thing as experts, Adam. No such thing as experts.
I'd like to hear that.
And our country, people follow hockey. They love hockey, and some people have different profiles and different platforms. But bottom line is that everybody has a real strong knowledge of hockey, and that's what drives the sport in our country, which is wonderful.
I'm going to keep that in my back pocket. I like that. Perfect. All right, so with all big trades not always happening in the deadline, do you think the NHL should move up the deadline a few weeks for teams that are making a push? So the whole trade deadline in quotations can go behind and teams can focus on winning, getting into the playoffs?
I think the system works fine. I think that there's 32 teams. Yeah. Moving up the deadline, I don't think changes anything. You want to give teams as great an opportunity to get a proper assessment of their team so that they get near the trade deadline or at the trade deadline, they're confident about what moves they want to make. I think that this current deadline provides that.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with what Craig said. I feel like you see, especially in the East, how tight it is. This is what you want. You want teams competing right to the very end. If you move the deadline up, I think you'll see teams kind of sell off much quicker. Competitiveness might, go down a little bit. I think it's fine where it is.
All right, and the last one, I only got 2 this week. I know I'm supposed to have 3, but I'm slacking. With the whole thing that's going on with Jacob Chychrun, should there be some sort of, I wouldn't say a rule, but just he hasn't played in almost 2 weeks now?
A little more.
3 weeks.
A little about that. Should there be some sort of a rule where I get they want to trade him, but to sit a guy that's your best player, do you think there should be a rule to, behind that?
No, I think that teams are, they have to be left to make their own roster decisions with whatever reasons they have to play players or to play players in certain situations. And keep in mind, the CBA provides for remedies if you feel that there's a player that's been aggrieved. If you think that there's something wrong, the CBA provides for those remedies. So bottom line is that teams have to be able to make decisions, roster decisions, whatever they may be. Players being held out a week longer, coming back from an injury, players being held out because of pending trade situation. Yeah, I mean, those are all individual team decisions. And if you start imposing rules on individual team decisions, you better be heavily invested in every single thing going on with that particular team. Good luck with that. I'd like to see the oversight. Ain't happening.
Yeah, no, that's I don't think they're going to do anything. I mean, for his sake, I hope you know, he's going full tilt in practice, or maybe he gets a conditioning stint in at one point. I doubtful, but
He's not getting a conditioning stint.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on. That ain't happening.
Yeah.
maybe he'll play some NHL. I don't know. 23, but
Yeah.
I mean, what can you do? As long as he's getting paid, take it as rest.
Yeah.
Gear up for whatever team you hopefully get traded to, because I feel like it's deja vu from last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, thank you for hopping on. I know this is a crazy busy time of year for you, so we really appreciate it. I look forward to watching you all 18 hours. You're going to be at TSN headquarters on Friday. And again, just thank you so much. You're a class act.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, my pleasure. Thumbs up to you guys. Always my pleasure to join you. And you should stay up late on Friday night, because the Montreal Canadiens very well could have a shot at drafting Connor Bedard.
Hey, you heard it here first.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right. You have a safe flight,
thanks.
and have a great trade deadline day.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, have a great night.
You too. Bye.
That's it. Both guys, 5 minutes each for fighting.
All right, average Jocks fans, another segment of 5 minutes for fighting. This time we have Corey Payment back with Cornwall Comets tough guy, number 32, Pat Allard. Pat, Corey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
All right, so Pat, I know you had a lot of fans, and if anybody were to Google Pat Allard, one of the first pictures that comes up on Google is a picture of you coming out of penalty box with just your lower body equipment on, and it says Pat Allard's House of Pain.
Yep, that's funny.
So to say you had your own booster club is a bit of an understatement. The only other goons that I remember that had their own booster club was the Hanson brothers.
Yeah.
Would you?
Serge Roberge had a good one too.
Yeah, that's before my time. I don't remember that.
Oh God.
I'm 27, and so I don't really remember Serge Roberge.
Okay, well, Mario Roberge and Serge Roberge played in the American League, played in the NHL, tough as nails, and Mario actually they both played in the North American as well. Tough fuckers.
So did you guys play against these guys, or you guys watch them?
No, actually, I played against Mario. If you want a long story, it's very easy. When I went to the a Montreal Canadiens pre-camp, I did it with the Mario Roberge. So he took care of me while I was there. Then I did the big camp, and then I got cut like two games after getting my fucking ass kicked by Ian Sorokin. Holy fuck, that hurt. Anyways, so after that, I went to West Palm Beach to play some hockey there. Believe it or not, it was called the Southern Hockey League. And I played against a guy that Corey knows called Ling Gates. Anybody know Ling Gates?
I've never heard of Lynn Gates, but the look on Corey's face says he knows Lynn Gates.
You don't know the missing link Gates.
Yep, that's one hell of a crazy bastard.
Anyways, and what do you mean by crazy? Like what makes this guy crazy?
Okay, so we're on the road, and he's he's in the same room as our second goalie, and the second goalie's on the phone with his girlfriend, and Gates didn't want him on the fucking phone. He told him 3 times. After the 3rd time, he took the phone out of his hand and beat it with it. So you gotta have something loose somewhere, but nice guy, I guess. He didn't last too long for that team. He was let go, and in I think 10 games later, we're playing against Huntsville, and a brawl breaks out. I go, let's have fun, and this guy grabs me, and the guy's like 6'6", but he's skinny, but he's tall, but he's older, and he's just shaking me. He says, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, I don't." "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, I don't." And Dave Pierto, the D, comes and grabs him. He says, "Cooker, let him go." I'm like, Cooker? Remember that guy that fought Bob Probert for Vancouver? Toe to toe? That was him.
That was Bob Probert grabbed you.
You know, Bob Probert was the guy that the guy that grabbed me was the guy that fought Probert. Best fight ever.
Okay.
In Vancouver.
Anyway,
Craig
in Vancouver.
Craig
Cox, yeah. So he says, "Cookie, let him go." I'm like, "What? Who the fuck is he?" And after the game, Pierto says, "He's the guy that fucking fought Probert twice." I said, "Oh shit, I almost died." So yeah, it was fun. And then after that year, I did pretty well there. And after that year, though, I came back and started the senior league and all up and up and up.
So how old were you when you played for the Comets? Because I was looking back at some of I have the cards from every player that played for the team. You looked like a young man playing in that seniors league compared to some of them. Like I look at Pascal Chiasson's card and he looks old as dirt. And then I see a young buck Paddlard.
Actually, I think, Corey, how old are you?
46.
46. I'm going to say around, I had quit hockey for 2 years, so I'd say around 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Corey, how old were you when you were playing in this?
19?
Yeah, 30. I think I was 29 the first year and then 30 the second year.
And how old did you have to be to play in this, or can whatever be eligible to play in a senior league?
There's no age. You had to be done junior. We weren't allowed to take.
That's right. That's right.
We weren't allowed to take 20-year-olds who could still play junior.
Okay.
But if you were done junior and you weren't going to school or playing for a university or whatever, and even if you were, our league would take you.
Yeah, there wasn't too many rules in that league.
No.